everybody, it's Hannah and welcome back to my channel. Today I am finally getting around to doing my August wrap up. Yes, I know I may be a month late, but I've just been extremely busy. I've been doing a lot of unboxings because that's all I really had time to film. But I'm really excited to be talking about the books I finished in August. In the month of August, I finished a total of 10 books, which I was super stoked about. I finished 2 audiobooks, which were my first ever audiobooks to listen to because I have always been a reader from the pages of a book, and I decided to pick up audiobooks of the same series, and I'm still continuing that series with an audiobook, but I will be talking about those very soon. So without further ado, let's just get straight into these books. As I said, I finished 2 audiobooks of the same series, and they are Cinder and Scarlet from the Lunar Chronicles. I actually didn't have very high hopes for this series. That's probably one of the reasons I picked up it as an audiobook, because I knew it was a retelling series and I'm not a big fan of retellings. My thought is, if you're going to write a story, come up with your own original idea. Don't hate me, I was definitely shown you can write an amazing retelling. These books, I absolutely am in love with the characters that Marissa Meyer has created in this world. The way she intertwines the stories of these fairy tales without making it too obvious and creating her own world and stories and characters was so unique. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely fell in love with Cinder, especially in this. She's just one of my favorite characters. I love how badass she is. I'm going to put down these 2 books because they're getting really heavy. I'm just going to hold up Cinder as I explain what this series is about, because it is the first one. This book series is based off fairy tales following a new character for each of the books. Cinder being the first one is obviously based off Cinderella. It follows this girl named Cinder who is a mechanic and a cyborg. Cyborgs are not welcome and not appreciated in New Beijing, a dystopian world which this book series is set in. It's very interesting to see the prejudices in the story based on man versus machine rather than race. I've never read that before, and it was really interesting to see. I think the way she executed this was absolutely incredible. I loved the world building in this series. It was absolutely amazing, and the characters, oh my goodness, I absolutely loved the characters. I especially loved Cinder. She was such a fantastic main character to have. She has so many flaws and complexities in her character. She definitely doubts herself a lot, which is awesome because it was something I could definitely relate to. And I absolutely love how these books are becoming intertwined the more books you read, and I'm glad I picked them up as an audiobook because it is a fantastic audiobook. The way it's read is amazing on the audiobook. Don't remember who actually reads it but that's really bad because I'm actually listening to it right now, so I should probably know that, but I will leave that link down below to let you know who reads it because I don't remember at the top of my head. But I'm just so glad I picked up this series, even though it was on audiobook form, and I obviously love it so much because I'm getting them all in hardcover. And I can't wait to finish this series because right now I am actually up to the 4th one. That's how behind on my wrap-ups I am. Don't judge me. But that's it for this series, and let's talk about the next one. So the first book I picked up and read was The Beholder by Anna Bright. I was really excited about getting this book in one of my loot crates. It sounded super interesting. Basically follows this girl named Sila who, after a public rejection of engagement, is whisked away to find a husband from across the different kingdoms. I was really disappointed in this book, unfortunately, because I felt like it would have a lot of political intrigue and mystery and fantasy elements because it is a fantasy book, so it's meant to be a fantasy book. It did have some fantasy elements, but not a lot, and the political intrigue wasn't really that exciting. It felt very slow, unfortunately. The character that I actually loved the most didn't appear to the very end of the story, or like really close to the end. I couldn't connect with Sila, unfortunately. She just annoyed me. She felt very, I don't know what it was. There was something about her that I just did not like. And I loved the character at the end of the story who was more morally grey in his development and plot and storyline. It's probably why I liked him, because I do like a lot of morally grey characters. However, I also like a lot of good characters, so I'm not sure what it was about this book, but it just fell a little bit flat for me, unfortunately. But I'm gonna see how the second book goes to see if it's just the first book because of the world building and trying to set it up, but I guess we'll just see. So unfortunately I didn't like this one, but I guess we'll see how the rest of the series goes. The next book I finished was one of my rereads of the series that I'm doing. I'm currently rereading 3 series at a time within the months as I get through the year. One of them being The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra, Clare, and all the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I've talked about this series non-stop for the last few months while being on my channel, so I'm only just going to give a brief description of what this series is about, and I can't give away too much about this one because it is the second one in the series. It basically follows this girl named Clary who, after discovering her mum getting kidnapped, basically follows this girl named Clary Frey who, after discovering her mum is missing, is tossed in a world full of shadow hunters, which are people who are half angel, half human, with vampires, werewolves, demons, fairies, and werewolves. I feel like I've just said werewolves twice. All those kind of creatures, and she has to work with the Shadowhunters to discover the secrets that her mum has been keeping from her, whilst also trying to save her. I absolutely love this series, obviously, because it is, well, I don't know how many rereads. I love rereading this series every year, and I'm definitely excited that I decided to reread it again. So the next book I finished in the month of August is actually one I picked up in Melbourne as part of my haul. If you want to check out that haul, I'll leave that video link down below. I've been wanting to read this series because they are comic series for so long. I have yet to pick up the next one because I have so many on my list, guys. That series is Hellblazer, which is basically following John Constantine. This one was the 30th edition of John Constantine Hellblazer. So basically it had a range of different stories in this book, which I felt was a great way to start. Just gives you an idea of the character, which I kind of knew already. It's very crude and rude, has a lot of adult themes in this book, so it is not, definitely don't pick it up if you do not want to see those themes in that book. But basically it is about this character named John Constantine who is an exorcist. He basically goes around and saves people from demons that are inside them. It is amazing. I absolutely love it. It's got very dark themes in this comic series, but I really love it. It's absolutely one of my favorites, and I'm definitely going to pick up the rest of them and get through them because I'm so excited that I finally got this. The next book I finished was one I have been anticipating reading and super excited I finally got around to reading it, even though it took me not as long as I thought it would because it is huge, and that is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. This one is obviously the last book of the series in the Throne of Glass series, and I'm so glad I read this one. I was so nervous and excited about this book, and I'm so glad I finally got around to reading it. I have so many emotions and feelings about this book. I absolutely love how it ended. I don't think I could picture a better ending. I absolutely love how it ended. I am just still a little reeling from it because there's so much that happens in this book, obviously, because it is huge. But I'm so glad I finally picked up this series and got through it. It is amazing. If you have not picked up Throne of Glass, I highly recommend it because it is absolutely incredible. I can't give away too much about this book because it is the last one in the series, so obviously it gives away spoilers. But it basically starts off with this girl named Selenia Sundathrian. I cannot say that name for the life of me. I am so sorry. And she's an assassin who is in the prison. She's recruited by the prince and his guard to compete in this tournament, which is basically where she has to kill people and win to become the king's personal assassin. Obviously, there is a lot that happens in this series, but that is basically the premise and where it starts. It is an amazing series. I highly recommend it to all fantasy lovers because it is a fantastic fantasy series. It is not perfect, but I absolutely love it. These two books are from different series and different genres. However, I wanted to talk about them a little bit one after the other because these were on my TBR and were voted for me to read next. And I'm so glad I did because I love both of them so much. One of them I knew I would absolutely love because it is an author I'm very familiar with, and that one is Magnus Chase and the Sword of Summer. Obviously, I have read the Percy Jackson series. That book is Magnus Chase, The Sword of Summer, the first book in this series by Riordan. I read the Percy Jackson series and also the series after, which I believe is like the House of Hades and all that one. I don't remember. The first one is the Lost Olympian or something. I'm currently up to the Trials of Apollo in that Percy Jackson world. I was super excited to read another mythology that Riordan writes, and it is just as funny as the Percy Jackson series, if not a little bit funnier, I think. And there are a few links in here to Percy Jackson which I didn't expect, which I found absolutely amazing. It basically follows this character named Magnus Chase, who after seeing something kill his mother that he can't explain, basically goes on the run. He is then tracked down by his uncle, who starts telling him about this world that he is a part of, which is to do with a lot of Norse mythology, so like Thor and Odin and all those gods and characters with that. So there's basically a story around those myths and legends with Magnus Chase going on quests and adventures, which is super cool. I absolutely loved the first one of this book. I love the world building and the difference that happens at the start of the book that I can't tell you about because that would be a spoiler. But I'm really excited that I picked this one up, and I'm hoping to read the second one because the second one actually just won that TBR poll on my Instagram. So if you want to check out that poll, definitely follow me on Instagram. That link will be down below. The next book that got voted for me to read and I read and devoured is Aurora Rising by Kristoff and Aime Kaufman. I believe that's how you say her name. I'm not 100% sure. As I've been keep saying, I am terrible with names, so please don't hate me for my pronunciations. This book is awesome. I don't read a lot of sci-fi, even though this wrap-up is probably proving me otherwise, but usually I don't read a lot of sci-fi. This one really blew me away. I absolutely was devouring this story. I think I finished it in 1 or 2 nights. I was so excited to read this book once I got into it. It's basically set in the very far future on this academy where they're all graduating to be set on their missions. When one of the main characters finds this girl who has been in cryosleep for over 2 centuries. And she has lost all her memories and doesn't know how she got there. And it follows all these mysteries and conspiracies surrounding her. There is a squad that gets sent on this mission and things happen, and it is really exciting and I absolutely love it. The characters are so unique. There are so many different personalities in each of these characters. I'm really excited to see how this one keeps going. Although I could predict a few of the things in this book, I really am excited to see how this series ends up. The last book I will be talking about today is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Before I got this book, because it came in one of my Loot Crate, it was actually on my TBR. So I was really excited to get it without having to go to the shops or ordering it online, and just getting it arrive at my door with a big surprise because I never know what books come, and I was really excited. I really liked the development of the characters and the romance. I really loved the romance in this book. I'm not usually a big romance person. I usually look for the story or the characters individually, not necessarily the romance. It's not a selling point, but the romance in this book was amazing. I absolutely loved it. This book is set in a world where women are often seen as the only hope is to marry well. She is a seamstress in her father's local shop. One day, a royal messenger for the emperor comes to her father's shop, get him to become the tailor for the emperor. As a girl, she has no hope of achieving this. However, she goes in his stead to enter this competition to become the emperor's tailor. It is amazing. I absolutely love it. That's the start of the story. There's a lot more that happens at the end of the story as well, which is really intriguing to see. and there's a lot of fantasy elements that surprised me that I didn't expect to see, because on the surface it's not seen as a massive fantasy book, but it is awesome. And I absolutely loved how she overcame a lot of the hurdles that were thrown at her, as well as having to reluctantly work with this character that she wouldn't actually like to work with, and seeing that relationship develop and grow. Alright guys, that's it for this month's wrap up. I should say August's wrap up, because it wasn't really this month. I hope you like what you saw. If you definitely hit subscribe and ring the bell to get notified every time I post a new video. As I said, my links for my social media will be all linked down below. Definitely check out the poll that happens every Wednesday that I do. Definitely know what books you read in the month of August or even October, because Definitely let me know what books you read in the month of August or September or October, because we are so behind in my wrap-ups. If you've read any of these books, definitely let me know what you thought and how you rated them along the other books that you've read in the past. But until next time guys, see ya!